Principal Matters Podcast, episode 454. Hi, friends. This is Will Parker, host of Principal Matters, the School Leaders Podcast, along with my co-host, Dr. Jen Schwanke, back for another episode. Jen, this week you're going to be interviewing PJ Caposey. And before we jump into that amazing interview, we have a question of the week. And can you give us some context for that question?
Yes, absolutely. So those who have been following along, this is the last in the question series from graduate students who are aspiring principals at The Ohio State University. They were students in my class and they had questions for Will. So this one comes from Brenna Cropper. Brenna teaches first grade in Worthington, Ohio, and she wants to know actually about the podcast, Will. She wants to know about compelling or surprising insights that you have gained from other leaders regarding human capital management. So stay tuned for that answer and for an interview with my friend PJ.
Hi, I'm Brenna Hailu, and I'm a first grade teacher. My question is, from your experience as a podcaster, what are the most compelling or surprising insights you've gained from other educational leaders regarding human capital management?
Well, let me just sound like an old guy for a minute, because you asked from my experience as a podcaster. So when I was a high school administrator, before that, I was a language arts teacher. I taught a creative writing elective. I taught AP language. I loved literature and I love to read. And I don't even mind teaching grammar, Jen, even though it's not as fun as the rest. But when I stepped into school admin, I learned to love that work too. At first, it was pretty overwhelming, and I had to figure out how to be myself in that work. But fast forward, and I was probably in my 7th or 8th year of admin. And I realized that one of the things I was really missing was just teaching writing and teaching, that part of my brain that wasn't being exercised anymore. So I just kind of started thinking, how can I marry these worlds? So back then there weren't a lot of people podcasting, and but there were a lot of people that were writing blogs. So I started a weekly blog. Where I would just write lessons I'm learning as an educator, and I would post it out, and my mom would read it, and then eventually a few of my friends. But over time, it began to grow into this audience of other leaders who would tell me they look forward to it every week to get this from me. So after about 2 years of that, I was able to do my first book with a lot of the content that came from that. And then what I discovered was I was starting to listen to podcasts, and this was around 2014, 2015. And if you know the podcasting world, that was when podcasts were just beginning to really to pop. Now it seems like everybody has a podcast. But so in 2016, I decided just to take the same content I was doing weekly and record it. So just an audio recording of me with the same content. And I began to share that out. And then I began to see a whole nother audience growing through the podcasting. So for a couple of years, it was just me. I would just share the same things every single week that I was learning. And it wasn't until probably, Jen, right before we met, that I started starting to bring in guests. And so that's where my eyes really started opening, because I have 420 something episodes now of my podcast. It's been downloaded more than 1.5 million times. But I've had people ask me why I didn't work on a doctoral degree or a PhD. And part of it's because I didn't want to, but the other part is because I've had so much fun learning over the last several years from literally hundreds of other people. And so it's really hard for me to say in just one sentence what's been the most surprising or compelling, because what I've discovered is when I'm willing to sit in the room and just listen to someone, every single person I've ever sat on the other side of always has some way to challenge my thinking in ways that I haven't been challenged before. They have an experience that I've never had to experience before. They have an insight that's going to be helpful for me. And so I would just say probably the most compelling insight I've gained is that the cycle of reflecting on what am I learning and what are other people learning, that cycle of reflection by itself has provided me with more joy, with more learning, with more insight, and with more ideas of things to do next than I've ever experienced before. And so I guess if I could leave you guys with some motivation, it would just be give yourself permission to stay a student, because that same light that you want to see in the eyes of those kids every single day when you're teaching them, you deserve to have that same light going off in your eyes. And it happens when you stay hungry to learn. And so, Jen, this podcast for me has just been a journey in learning. And so, and I hope I can keep doing it, because it's just been something it's changed the way I learn. And I hope that by bringing people stories to others, it can change the way they learn too.
I think that's such a great way to end. Well, we do have to stay learning. We do have to stay sharp. We do have to follow the hunger. When I think about educators that are jaded and exhausted and counting the days till they retire, they maybe didn't keep following that hunger, and we're talking to a pretty friendly crowd here because they're all in a master's program.
Mm-hmm.
They are following that desire to keep learning. So a great point. And also, let's just note how hard it is to stay a podcaster. Many people start podcasting, very few stay because it's hard work. And Will, you said that before, like every week you had to have something. And that takes a lot of perseverance. So shout out to you. Well, Will, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, thank you guys for this opportunity, and please stay connected. I know you know Jen, so if you want to ever reach out to me or just jump on a one-on-one, I love to reflect with leaders. So you can always find my resources at my website, which is my name, williamdparker.com. Let's take a moment to thank our sponsors, and then we'll be right back. As school leaders, we all know that student behavior impacts everything: learning, staff morale, and school culture. That's why I want to tell you about Connecting Through Conversation, a practical online course from Erica Bear and Tiffany Burns. This course helps your team de-escalate situations, avoid power struggles, and build stronger student relationships. It's super flexible, short videos, easy reflection guides, and perfect for individuals or staff groups. Best of all, it won't overwhelm your already packed schedule. And here's a bonus: Principal Matters listeners get a discount. Use the code Principal Matters to save $50 on the individual course or $200 on a site license. Check it out at connectingthroughconversation.com and start creating a culture of calm and connection today. That's connectingthroughconversation.com. Over 1 million teachers use IXL in their classrooms every day for one reason: they love it. Why? IXL is where the magic happens. With just one platform, teachers can personalize learning for every student. IXL gives teachers all the tools they need to enhance and differentiate instruction without adding work to their plates. Plus, IXL has decades of expertise and is proven to be effective. Studies on more than 70,000 schools across 45 states show that those who use IXL outperform others on state tests. Ready to bring the magic to your school? Visit ixl.com/PM to learn more.
You're listening to Principal Matters, the School Leaders Podcast.
Welcome back, Principal Matters podcast listeners. I'm excited to have my friend PJ Caposey with us today. Hi, PJ. Thanks for joining us.
Jen, good to see you. Not on a panel.
Yeah, not on a panel. So yes, Principal Matters podcast listeners, PJ and I met, gosh, what's it been? 3 or 4 years ago, I think.
Was Colorado the first?
I think it was.
Okay.
Yeah. And PJ and I have both written books and done a lot of work for ASCD. So we found ourselves on a panel together and we just had a wonderful time. And I think there's been 2 or 3 other panels since then. So we've gotten to know each other that way. And I'm so excited to hear the things that you have to say to our principal listeners today. So let me start with a bio for everyone to hear who PJ is. Besides a dynamic speaker and transformational leader and educator, PJ began his career as an award-winning teacher in the inner city of Chicago and has subsequently led significant change in every administrative post he has held. He became a principal at the young age of 28 and within 3 years was able to lead a small town rural school, historically achieving near the bottom of its county to multiple national recognitions. After 4 years, PJ moved to his current district, Meridian CUSD? What is that?
Community Unit School District.
Okay, 223 as superintendent and has led a similar turnaround leading to multiple national recognitions for multiple different efforts. He was the 2023 Illinois Superintendent of the Year, a finalist for the 2023 National Superintendent of the Year, and is also a best-selling author. His latest book, which he co-authored with Brian Willis, is Cracking the Coaching Code, using personality archetypes to maximize performance. So, gosh, quite a resume you have there, my friend.
Thank you. And I did not add what I sent to you. I'm currently actually doing two districts. So I'm superintendent of two districts. So the district I was at as a principal back before, I'm now back as superintendent there and still in Meridian. So we are in the work right now.
Wow, no kidding. I knew one person in my entire life who did two districts. That is no small task.
Yeah, I 0 out of 10 recommend.
Right.
So we're doing the best we can, but it's not a lifestyle. It's a 1 year thing. So
It's a 1 year thing. Yeah, they probably said, PJ, we need you. And you said, okay,
yeah,
let's
that's about
do it.
exactly how it went. Yes.
Right. So we have this podcast is so much fun. It's really gained kind of an international reach, and we want our listeners to know about guys like you that are out there. So tell us about yourself beyond the bio, both professionally and with your life outside of work.
Sure. I mean, I guess I'll start with the heavy stuff first. Kind of everything I do is dictated by the fact that at 17 and at 30, I think 5 and 37, I was diagnosed with cancer. So I go really exceptionally, sometimes problematically hard at everything I do, just based on this like core belief that our life is a finite resource. And I laugh all the time because we had half day kindergarten when I was little, and my mom would watch Days of Our Lives when I'd get home. And it was like through the sands of the hourglass, these are the days of our lives. So for me, like, we just don't know what the sands of that hourglass is for each of us. And so I choose, and thankfully I have the support of my wife, to go as hard as I can to try to maximize every ounce of ability or talent or capacity, whichever way you want to say it, that I have. And
Right.
so that's kind of the defining ethos of why, like, I joke, I've got like several full-time jobs, right? I'm on the road speaking about 100 days a year. Got 2 superintendencies. I've written 10 books in 10 years. I teach at 3 or 4 universities, and all of that is intentional, right? Like, people are like, why don't you just say no? Like, I don't want to, right? Like, I want as full of a life as possible, both on the professional side, and then I'm very fortunate that I've got a wife and a family that supports me pursuing my dreams. And so I've got a wife and 4 kids. One's a freshman in college, a senior, and then twin 10-year-olds. And my wife works in one of my districts, which is an interesting complication.
Right.
But like, I'm actually very fortunate. She's like, her data is incredible. So it's buoying like the whole health of the
Right.
district, but still my wife, right? Like, it's still,
Right.
it's harder for her than it is me, right? Because I don't eat in the lunchroom. So no one's got to be quiet around me, but I feel like it's hard for her. But so together,
Right.
we're kind of an education family. 2 of the 4 kids want to go into the family business. It's kind of what we do.
When I first met you, I knew all the things that you were kind of doing. And then you said you had 4 kids and you ended with the twins. And I thought, my Lord, how does this guy have this much energy? So first of all, tell our listeners, are you healthy now after the cancer
Yes.
scares?
Yes. So in full remission of all 3 of the different calamities that have gone through, and I'm past the 5-year mark in all of them, which is the typical fear point. So it's interesting, like, just to give context to that, is in what happens with cancer a lot of times is the treatments are harsh, right? So I had the first cancer, which just happens, but then my second and third cancers were from the treatment for the first cancer, right? And so
Right.
hopefully it's not like I just have some weird genetic predisposition to getting cancer. So hopefully now those are remedied, and
Right.
we can keep moving forward.
So you do a lot. And I know that our listeners are going to be thinking, how in the world does he have the energy and the time management to do all of that? So answer that question for us.
So time management is actually probably what I consult and present most on. So it's near and dear to my heart, and I can get into some details on that. But I always say that I think I do less than most people, which is why I'm successful. So, like as a superintendent, I feel like I do fewer things than almost all of my superintendent buddies. Like when they call, they're like, "I'm so stressed out about this or that," and like those are things that like I just don't do.
Mhm.
Because I think like one of the core tenets that a lot of people that talk on time management talk about is kind of Pareto's principle, right? That 20% of the work yields 80% of the results. When I find that I have a skill at both in my own work and then in consulting is trying to figure out like what that 20% is and doubling down on it and then getting the results and then not caring as much about the other 80% of the fluff that people tend to fit into their day. So I'd say that like that is my definitive strength is doing less better
Right.
than most people and not trying to do more. Um, the
Right.
the long thesis of what time management looks like for me is like I always view it the same way as a diet. Like we all know what it would take to have a six pack again, right? Like, and we just would need to consume less and move more. Like it's not a complicated formula, and I kind of view time management very similarly. But I think it's complicated because I think three things are in constant competition, and most people don't have the courage to talk about any of those three. I think one is our own ego demands. The second is whatever the societal norms are that we've assigned to ourselves. Like, this is what we do as a dad. This is what a good mom looks like. And then we also have our kind of, I believe in, and that we all have this inner Maslow, like this desire to be great. And those three things fight in different directions. And so, if we're unwilling to have the conversation internally and with the people we love the most about figuring out what our ego demand is compared to what our societal norms are telling us we should be doing, compared to what that inner drive for greatness is, then of course we're going to be scattered and time's going to be all over the place because we're serving three different needs at once. And the key to that is really, for me, if where I have found success and joy is that those three things point in the same direction for me. So I'm not fighting three different battles. I'm just fighting one, which allows me to be productive in the time that I'm here.
So, listeners, I want you to rewind and listen to that all again. I think that's really critical for people to understand is if your three buckets are all kind of splashing all over each other and they're not working in the same direction, that's where the exhaustion, the burnout, the stress is. And I agree with you. I will work with principals. That's primarily where I focus, and they are so stretched so thin, and I will say, okay, let's do a time study. Where are you spending your time? And I'm with you. Sometimes I'm like, why are you doing that? That shouldn't be on your plate at all. That belongs on somebody else's plate.
I mean, so there's so many things that we have just accepted as the way we should do things that I just encourage everyone to like just be a little bit cynical, maybe even stubborn before you accept something. So I'm not saying just to like be essential negative. Like I don't think that helps organizations, but we've just blanket accepted that open door policy is a good thing. Like,
Preach. Yes. And not
like
so.
what are we talking about? So like if I asked any principal and said, "Hey, would you ever feel comfortable walking in to Miss Talbert's science period, second period, and talking to her for 10 minutes about the copier or her kid's soccer game?" And they look at me like I'm crazy. I'm like, you let 57 teachers throughout the course of the week take 10 to 15 minutes about that all the time because you want to have an open door policy. And so, like, when we break down like what an open door policy is supposed to be, it's for access. And I do believe my staff deserve access to me, and I believe they deserve it within 24 hours. And I believe that's my duty. But they also don't get to dictate my schedule. So I don't believe in open door policy. I believe in an open calendar policy. Here's my calendar, find a spot. But you don't get but we've just decided open door policy works. And like, there's zero research to support that. And the same people that have like open door policies, when they do their 360 surveys or whatever feedback they get, there's still people that don't think they're accessible enough. Even though,
Exactly.
so like, are we being thoughtful in the approach? Because if we're not being thoughtful, then we are going to try to do everything and end up doing nothing well.
Well, exactly. I think people mistake availability for all access. We want to be available, but that doesn't mean it has to be all access. And I've stood in front of principal groups before and said, "Oh my gosh, I love my door because I like to close it because then I can really get some things done." And I will hear audible gasps from the room because you're right. We've been programmed to think our door has to be open and anybody can stop in any time with their thing and interrupt our flow of work. And I agree. I think I think that can really chip away at our productivity and our availability.
And our joy. There's an aspect of it too. I used to, before my principals got used to this, because I would preach this and then they would like not in agreement but not change, right? And so I would schedule meetings with them in district office and then show up and be like, all right, this is just your time to work. And they're like, what? And I'm like, we don't have a meeting. Like, this is just to force you to not be stressed out this weekend. So now you have 90 minutes on this Friday, get stuff done. No one's going to bother
Right.
you. You're here. No one's going to call you because they know that you're with the boss. And now you're good. Get some stuff done.
Right.
And they would look at me shocked. Like, I'm like, you could do this in your office, but since you're
Right.
unwilling, I am now going to force you to do it. And then
Right.
they'd walk out and I'd get text like on Sunday, this is the best weekend I've had in whatever. Like, yes, like it's
Exactly.
okay. We can do that.
There was a big trend. It's still there a little bit, but on social media, principal groups, there was this big trend for people to kind of transform like an overhead projector cart into a mobile desk. And everybody would post pictures of their mobile desks. And no offense to anybody who did that, truly. But for me, that would never work because when I was in the hall with kids, I wanted to be fully engaged. I didn't want my laptop there. And then when I was in my office, I wanted to close the door and dive into my laptop. So I think that's what it's about. If you're spread way too thin trying to be everything to everybody all the time, then you're nothing to nobody most of the time.
And this extends to home, right? Like,
Exactly.
and so there, if so, like for me, and this is again lots of conversation open with my family. I come home after I'm at zero inbox, and I'm a zero inbox guy. And I'm not saying that that's how anyone else has to be or should be, but then I can be home. Then I can be fully home. If I came home and I had 14 things in my inbox, like I love talking to my 10-year-old about Fortnite, but I wouldn't be thinking about Fortnite, right? Like I'd be thinking about, well, I got to get back to Patricia about the sub issue or whatever it is. But if I can get to zero inbox, I can go home and then I can listen and learn about Pokemon or whatever the heck we're talking about, right?
Right.
So for me, it's again, I'm going to go exceptionally hard and fast at what I do. And then I'm going to jump into a different bucket. And then I'm going to go hard and fast in that so that I can, and when I do that, like I find like whatever the ephemeral joy quotient to be goes up. Like I like work, like, and I'm very fortunate. I really like it, but I also really, really, really like my family. Like the pandemic taught me, like I always joke when I talk about my wife when I speak, like I knew I loved her, but it was nice to find out I liked her again. Like that we
Right.
liked each other. Like the pandemic taught us that we had enough time. Like, oh, like she's pretty cool. Like I'm glad that she chose me. Right. Um,
Right.
and so I like being home too, but I don't want to do both together because I'm going to do neither well. And so it there's not a system, but there's a philosophy, right? Like whatever system, what might work for Jen might not work for me, but the philosophy is the same, right? Like it's let's go as hard as we can, do it, be focused, be thoughtful. Don't just accept leadership colloquialisms as truth, and then make the decision for yourself.
Well, and I love that you said it's different for PJ as it is for Jen, as it is for, the guy down the hall or the street or next county over. We are all different. But I hear from so many principals that they really struggle at home to turn off work. And I know for me to do it, it takes a lot of self-talk. I have to say, Jen, there are no emails that you need to answer. Jen, the world will keep going if you walk away for these 12 hours and really look your kid in the eye. So does it take, I guess what I'm asking, do you feel like this is a skill? Have you trained yourself to be Pokemon guy when it's time for Pokemon? Or are your buckets so incredibly distinct and separate that it's easy for you to do?
So like I know that if I'm not at zero inbox, I can't focus on it. Like I just know. Now, do I have to stay at zero inbox? No, because I know that if I leave at 4 or 5 or 6 or 7, whatever the day is, right? Each day is different at zero, and I wake up super early at 4 a.m. between 7 and 4, there's not an emergency. Between 6 and 4, there's not. And if there is no call, it's not going to be an email. So then I can just turn off that part of my brain, and I can sleep well, and I can parent, and I can do those things. But I've got to get to the zero inbox. And
Right.
if not, then I struggle. Like, my wife laughs because I wrote my first book on our honeymoon, like very romantic, right?
Right.
But like on our vacations, I have to work or I get anxiety. Now, I think that's a terrible strategy. Like, I'm not recommending that to anybody, but I've done the work and I've had the conversations with my wife to know that's how I am. So I wake up early no matter what. So between 5 and 8, if my family's sleeping and I work and therefore I can relax from 8 until midnight with them, that is the best possible time I could spend. But if I pretended not to be worried about work, that 8 to midnight with my family wouldn't be good.
Right.
So part of this is like, I think we just tell ourselves lies. Like, and I learned this through a very frank conversation with my boys when they were like 11 or 12 years old, because they told me that to be a better dad, I should play video games with them. And I'm like, I watch you guys play video games all the time. They're like, you read or do email while we play video games. We want you to play video games with us. And like, the lesson in there was me like, half engaged doesn't work.
Right.
Like in more than anything, the kids know you're half engaged. And so I'm either all in or all out on pretty much anything I do all the time. And I don't know, again, I'm not sure if that's right, but I've done the work to know that it's right for me. And that's what I would encourage anyone listening to think about is like, have you done the work to figure out what's right for you and not what you read in a guru's book or not like, take in all of that. Like, I read incessantly trying to find new and better ideas. And then I examine it through my lens, my weird brain, and then I figure out what works for me. And sometimes it is just adopting an idea, and other times it's adopting 17% of the idea and moving forward. But then I figure out what works for me and I try to optimize it. But I don't just blindly accept stuff, and I don't accept the feeling that I get when I'm uneasy or anxious. Like, I fight that and try to study or research or experiment my way out of it so that I can be the best possible version of me the most amount of time. Like, I also want to be very clear, like, I'm not rocking it all the time. Like, I screw this up too. But it's a constant struggle to try to get better. I'm not just accepting that I should feel anxious or should feel not at ease in my own home at any time. Like, I will not accept that. I'll keep tinkering until I find a different thing.
So what is such an interesting mix with what I'm hearing you say is you have equal amounts confidence and humility. You know you're really good at this. You know you've got your system. You also know you screw up sometimes and you're not necessarily doing your best work. What I love though most about what you just said is you read, you absorb, you listen, and you give yourself permission to discard the stuff that won't work for you. I see so many principals who are like, I'm looking for the answer. If I can just find the right book or the edgy celebrity or the, whatever, the Facebook post that tells me how to do this better. And I think what you're saying is you have to be critical about all of that advice, so to speak, and really truly find what works for you.
Oh, it was right before we jumped on. I was meeting with Doug Reeves, and Doug, edgy celebrity, like OG edgy celebrity, right? Like, he was like pre-Twitter edgy celebrity. And one of my favorite slides when he speaks, and he's a researcher, like Doug is not like a keynote presenter edutainer guy. He's a researcher that happens to give keynotes, right? And so my favorite slide when he talks about like, what does research actually mean, and like, is there truth? And so the highest level of research, like as he explains, which I think is just a simple way but it sticks for me always, is what does the preponderance of evidence say? And that's the highest form of research, if the preponderance of evidence agrees. And I love that it's said that way because it still leaves room to say that what the preponderance of evidence says might not work for you, because it's not saying it's a universal truth. It's just saying the preponderance of evidence would indicate this is what you should do. So when I read stuff, that's kind of the lens at which I look at it through. It's like, this is great. If the preponderance of evidence says this is what's going to work, I should attempt it. But I also can say, like, I might be that 18% it doesn't work for, which is cool. Like, so I I think that we have almost a duty to keep improving and staying unfinished and keep working and grinding. But then also to be like, yeah, this works, or this doesn't work for a lot of people, but it works for me. And to have the barometer and the confidence to be like, yeah, like this is a great idea, not for me.
Right.
This is an average idea that really works great for me, so I'm going to double down on it. Like that to me is part of growing as a professional, growing as a human being, to figure that out.
Right. Well, and giving yourself permission to discard things. Like I said earlier, I think there's a lot of guilt. Principals carry a lot of guilt because first of all, they think they have to be perfect all the time. And second of all, there's so many advice givers out there for principals. I'm one of them, you're one of them. A lot of people are saying, "Hey, try this, try this." And I think sometimes it's okay to go, "You know what? That would never work for me." Or, "I tried that and it was a disaster." And then just let it go, right? Just let it go.
The most everyone that you look at that's super highly successful, and again, I'm saying maybe not even in the authentic sense, maybe truly highly successful, but I'm saying looks good on the internet successful is kind of the example, is usually someone who has exploited a niche. Like it's not necessarily that everything is crushing it. They might, but they're very good at a thing, or their school is very good at a thing. It's not that they're the perfect educator, right? It's
Right.
not that they're the perfect person. Like it's just they're good at a thing that they've doubled and tripled down on, and this is what works for them. And that's okay. Like I don't know the perfect educator, haven't met him, right? Like and even when you think you do, then you start asking questions. You're like, maybe, well, like, so like, I'm not trying to be the perfect educator. I'm trying to figure out what I'm very good at, right? Like, in some of the, like, I believe that I'm good at seeing systems, I'm good at finding efficiencies, and I'm willing to have conversations that most people would shudder at having, right? Like, those are the things that I like. So that's what I do all day. Is I try to improve and lean out our systems so that we can have it. And I try to have conversations with people to inspire them, but also to call out some toxic or negative behaviors that most people wouldn't. And that's what I do because that's what I know that I'm good at. There are probably thousands of superintendents in the country that are better at having deep, detailed curricular instructional conversations than I am. And I'm not spending thousands of hours to become as good as them at that. I am not. Like I am dangerous and I can help most people with curriculum, but I'm not an expert. And
Mhm.
I don't have a desire to be an expert because I don't know that it makes me better at my job if I'm an expert there as well. And principals want to do all of those things to all of those people. And if not, then who are they to be in the position with like this dramatic imposter syndrome? Uh, are you helping people get better every day? Are you
Right.
helping kids get better every day? Are you creating systems that support kids? You're doing that, you're probably crushing. But like double down on the strength. Let's not try to be generalists. Like
Right.
let's be absolutely amazing at things we're amazing at. And the rest, like if you create a team and you build leaders around you, they're going to suck up all of the mess that you're leaving behind and the things you're not perfect in.
I just want to say amen because I've been saying to a lot of principals in the work I'm doing how wrong I was when I bought into the idea that was fed to me. That phrase, hire good people and get out of their way. I thought that was really, really true. And then I started to see really, really good people who are collapsing under bad systems. And I realized actually systems should come before people because good people suffocate if a system isn't there to help them be their best. So tell us a little bit more about that. You say you're a systems guy. How did you get to be a systems guy and why does it matter so much?
Um, so it's actually interesting. In my interview to become a superintendent, I was 30 years old. I was taking over a district that had five soups, and I was the fifth soup in 3 years. So it was in chaos.
Wow.
Um, and I told them in the interview I was a systems thinker. And I would have I kind of see the world in a flow chart, right? Like everything kind of like that's kind of how my brain naturally works. And then I got into this district and I was like, whoa, like I didn't know where to start. Like I didn't have like I think I'm pretty decent at systems, but this needed someone like smarter than me to figure out what the system was. Like I just didn't know where to start. It was so broken. And so I started going to a bunch of professional development on it and reading and trying to find like how like I needed to grow in order to do it. And I found the Baldrige framework for educational excellence. And so if you've been around education long enough, that name is familiar because it was trendy in the 80s and early 90s and was federally funded. And there's a lot of grants if you would try to do it. And then it just became not trendy anymore. But it still exists. And I'm here to say it's the most valuable professional development that I've ever done. And so you can become like a certified Baldrige trainer and evaluator. And so I became an evaluator. And then I went into places like hospitals and evaluated their systems. And all of a sudden, like systems made sense to me when I looked at it outside the educational space. So inside the educational space, I was just too intertwined. But once I got out and looked at it in manufacturing, got out and looked at it in healthcare, I'm like, okay, I can conceptually see where they're doing things that dramatically are better than what we're doing, that then we can take and make our own and try to go through. So for me, like I believe most educational systems can survive with about 20 to 25 key systems. And then we can just work to refine all of those. I would have said there was 150 systems in a district 15 years ago until I kind of like when you actually break it down, there's really about 18 to 25 key systems. And if you can work on and identify and name all of those, then you can start to lean them out. And if you lean them out, you destroy bureaucracy, which creates efficiency, which allows teachers and leaders to feel empowered. And so for me, that's been the work that we've done in Meridian, right? We were just starting the work now in Oregon. But in Meridian, we were the first district in 20 years to receive gold status from their outside evaluation last year because of of continually striving to lean out our systems and to make them efficient and to make everything one thing. And so like that was the biggest compliment I ever got. My high school principal in Meridian is exceptionally talented. But to her own admission, so like if she watches this, she'd be like, she's also a tough nut to crack from a leadership perspective because she's so talented.
Right.
And about 5 years in, she's like, I get it now. And I'm like, what do you get? She's like, it's all the same thing. She's like evaluation and school improvement and human resources and complaint management and acceleration. It's all the same thing. And when you're asking all these same questions, it's the same thing I'm saying to you. Should be the same thing I'm saying to the parents. Should be the same thing I'm saying to the school improvement team. Should be the same thing at the faculty team. Should be the same thing. Like, yes, it's all the same thing if you build the system the right way. If not, there are 47 different silos, and that's when we get exhausted. So I view my work as the superintendent is to help my leaders see it's all one thing. Now it's a big circle and there's different parts of it, but the more that we can make that instead of a 20-headed Venn diagram and we can close that into one circle, that's my work as a superintendent. And if I do that, I've created the efficiencies for them to be amazing.
So it strikes me too, many of the principals listening might say, well, gosh, I wish I had a superintendent that was willing to simplify systems from 200 down to 25. What power do principals have? And you know, you jumped into a principal role at 28, so you know this. When a principal feels bogged down by too many systems or too many complicated systems, what can they do at the building level to eliminate or simplify systems for their teachers?
Yeah, so I think there's probably two answers that are kind of almost binary in this. There just are some districts and some superintendents that just overload stuff to a point of where you're drinking from a fire hose and it's just so much. It's hard to do. And like I have one quick strategy that you can sort of use, but it doesn't really answer the question because that's just hard. And you typically find this in affluent districts with huge district office because then every assistant superintendent or chief feels like there has to be one or two things coming from them to earn their keep, and it just becomes a ton. But one of the things I do when I consult and go in and do buildings like this is we just do, and I call it an initiative purge. And we write everything down that has been initiated in the last 5 years. And A, that's cathartic, right? Like for the teachers to get it out. But B, then we group them under families, right? And so even in those districts, it usually ends up being 4 or 5 things. Now, there might be 18 steps to the one thing, right? But usually it goes under like, yeah, what we're actually trying to do is improve ELA performance, like in this and this and this and that, but it's all under this umbrella. Whereas if we don't do that, it just can feel very, very disjointed. For the people that don't work in districts like that, for me, like, have you done the mental work to try to connect the dots? Because not all the times, like, is someone going to do it for you. So, like, I used to get I remember having a battle with one of my grad school professors over mission statements.
Right. Oh, Lord.
Because they kept talking to me about like the importance of mission statements. And I'm like, I looked, like, every school has one and some of them are still pretty bad. So, like, I don't think this is the key to like unlocking whatever. And I've kind of turned, like, the mission statement should drive some action, right? Like, it should, but like, every district typically has mission, vision, and values. If it doesn't, then you can do that work at the building level. So, like, the thing that I focus on most of those is values. So our values here in Oregon are that we want to chase excellence while being people-centered and having integrity. If we make all of our decisions with those three things, then everything should trickle down. And we do that by focusing on three core objectives, right? Which is that we want to improve our culture, we want to lean our systems, we want to improve our performance. And so everything comes back to that. Like, so when I say it's all one thing, like, our school improvement plans, our departmental improvement plans, all should be chasing excellence, right? Like that, like, they all should be focused on establishing a culture of academic rigor and high standards. Like, that's the work. Now, every staff meeting should tie to that. Every single staff meeting should tie to that. Every single professional development decision should tie to that. Every single one-on-one conversation you should have should tie to that. Every single evaluation should tie to that. If that's not all pointing in the same direction, then you as the leader have the ability to make it do so, right? Like, now, if there's 19 things, that becomes harder. But if you can narrow it down to three things, every conversation should be about that, right? Like, and it's rhetoric matters, vernacular matters. So we can't brand ourselves as one thing on social and have t-shirts and then never talk about it and have it matter. But like, in our district right now, I don't know that our typical staff member could tell you our three values. Like,
Right.
it's year one, but they can all tell you about chasing excellence.
Right.
That one they've got, and it's been 6 months, but it's in every conversation we have, is how are we chasing excellence? That idea is to go from okay to good. I'm not interested in good, chase excellence. Like, because every conversation is about that. Now,
Right.
hopefully integrity and people-centered come along, but for now, I'm pretty happy with that, right? Like, when my janitor can say very plainly to my principal yesterday, this happened because we're having a large professional development event today, that when they said, principal to janitor, our floor doesn't look good enough because we're having a big national speaker come in, and they say, yeah, it's not pursuing excellence. I've got to do better.
Yeah.
Like, that's a massive win, right?
Yeah.
And because it's all becoming the one thing. So
Right.
like, when people think systems, like, they're thinking flowcharts. For me, it's concepts. Let's pursue excellence in everything we're doing. And if we do that, we're going to end up on a better side than where we are at today.
Right. Right. So all of this work, and I know because I've seen it, you're out there, you're sharing this with the world. I think you're going to be at ASCD in San Antonio, so we'll probably cross paths there. Where else can our listeners find you? You've got 10 books, you've got a blog. Tell our listeners, if they want a little bit more PJ Caposey, where do they find you?
So anywhere with PJ Caposey. So email is pcaposey@gmail. Website's pjcaposey.com. Social handles are P Caposey or PJ Caposey, depending on platform. I'm pretty easy to find in those regards. I don't have a podcast, so I'm one of the few. I'm on a bunch of them, but I've never taken the time to get there. And this year's been actually interesting because I've had to become much more selective with what I'm doing, speaking and consulting wise, because of the two jobs. So next year that schedule opens back up. So I'm looking forward to getting back on the road. I was just talking today, like, it's been a while since I've seen the ocean. So I'm looking forward to getting back out and seeing some people and doing some things.
Well, and you don't need a podcast. You can come on mine anytime you want. How about that? I do know Will Parker started this podcast, and it's an enormous amount of work. So maybe you just, let other people invite you. It's actually a very good strategy, I think. So,
Well,
thank you. Thank you, PJ. It has been a true pleasure to talk to you today. And for all of our listeners, look at the show notes at at williamdparker.com, or you can find the link on my website as well, jenschwanke.com, to get to this interview and to find where PJ Caposey is today. Thanks, everyone. And thank you, PJ.
Thank you, Jen.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Principal Matters, the School Leaders Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, would you take a moment and like, share, subscribe, or leave us a review? In fact, if you share it out with a friend, even more people can become a part of these conversations. Sign up for our newsletter at williamdparker.com for even more free resources. And don't forget to check out our website to learn more about our books, professional development offerings, Grow Academies, masterminds, executive coaching, and keynote presentations. Wow, let's keep learning together. And thank you for doing what matters.
Principal Matters.